My name is Amelia R. Bramlett. I am 34 years old, and I work as a mid-level operations manager. I live in a fast-growing suburb outside Phoenix, and most of my days are structured, predictable, and busy in a way I find comfortable. I have always leaned toward routine. Early mornings, gym before work, spreadsheets before meetings, quiet evenings at home. I'm not flashy, but I am stable. That has generally worked for me. My boyfriend Ryan is 31. We have been together for 6 years. We do not have kids, but we share a mortgage, 2 cars, and a joint savings account. He works in digital marketing and spends most of his day online managing other people's brands. When we first started dating, I liked that he was social and outspoken. He brought energy into rooms I would normally try to leave quietly. Over time, though, that energy shifted. It became more performative, more dependent on outside validation. About a year ago, he got serious about Instagram. Not influencer serious, but serious enough that everything became content. Dinners, vacations, even random weekday thoughts became polls and engagement bait. I was home last Thursday afternoon. I had taken a half day because I had wrapped a major project early. I remember it clearly because I was on the couch in sweatpants reviewing some numbers on my laptop when my phone buzzed. Ryan was at work. A friend from the gym sent me a screenshot with no message attached, just the image. It was Ryan's Instagram story, a selfie of him at his desk, smiling like he was sharing something harmless. Across the top, he had written, "Should I leave my boring girlfriend for the hot girl at the gym?" Underneath were 2 options. Yes, and do it. The percentage was already high and climbing. I did not feel a rush of anger. What I felt was stillness. The kind that comes when something you suspected but never confirmed is finally put in plain text. He knew I followed his account. He knew people we both knew would see it. He also knew I was home. That detail mattered. I sat there watching the poll results tick upward while he was at his office posting it for engagement. That was the moment I stopped interpreting his tone as joking and started taking his words at face value, and I voted yes too. For context, this was not the first time Ryan had joked publicly at my expense. Over the past year, he had made comments about me being safe, predictable, low energy. He framed it as teasing. I told him twice that I did not like being turned into content. Both times he brushed it off and said people knew he was kidding. This one felt different. There was a name attached to it, even if he did not write it directly. The hot girl at the gym was real. Her name is Marin, late 20s, personal trainer, very aware of her reflection in mirrors. Ryan had mentioned her before in passing, mostly in a tone designed to get a reaction. The first time he brought her up was 3 months ago. He said she offered to adjust his form during squats. He described her body in detail. Then he looked at me like he was waiting for something. I said if he needed a trainer, he could hire one. That seemed to disappoint him. Back to Thursday, I watched the poll percentage climb into the 90s. Comments were coming in. I could see some of them because he reposted a few replies to his story. Things like, "Life is too short and upgrade king." One of his coworkers commented a flame emoji and tagged the gym location. I did not text him. Instead, I screenshotted everything. The original poll, the results, the reposted comments. Then I closed the app and sat back on the couch. Here's the part people might question. Why not confront him immediately? Because confrontation had never worked with Ryan. He thrived on emotional reactions. If I called him angry, I would become the insecure, controlling girlfriend in his next story. So I did something simple. I voted yes. I did not remove myself from the house right away. I had time. He would not be home until after 6. I walked upstairs, opened the closet, took a suitcase down, and started folding clothes carefully. Not all of them, just enough. Passport, laptop, important documents, a few things that mattered. Then I logged into our joint savings account. I did not drain it. I transferred exactly half into my personal account, clean, traceable, reasonable. After that, I called my older sister and told her I might need to stay with her for a few days. She did not ask for the full story. She just said, "Come by whenever." At 5:47 p.m., Ryan texted me. "Did you see my story?" I replied one word, "Yes." He sent a laughing emoji and wrote, "Relax. It is just a joke." I looked around the house we had bought together 3 years ago, and I kept packing. After I finished packing the essentials, I walked through the house slowly and made a mental inventory. Almost everything in that house had a receipt attached to my name. The sectional in the living room. I bought it 2 years ago when the old one started sagging. The dining table, my purchase. The washer and dryer, mine. The bed frame, mine. Even the TV mounted in the living room was something I had paid for outright as a birthday gift to myself before we were together. Ryan had contributed to decor, throw pillows, wall art, rugs he changed every season, but the structural purchases, the big-ticket items, were mostly mine. I sat at the kitchen island and pulled up the folder on my laptop where I keep scanned receipts. I am organized like that. Every major purchase cataloged. Then I called a moving company I had used once before when we first bought the house. I explained I needed a same-day pickup. They said they had a crew finishing a job nearby and could be at my address within 2 hours for an expedited fee. I approved it without hesitation. As I ended the call, my phone buzzed again. Ryan had sent another message. Still light, still casual, still assuming I was playing along. And I realized something cold and simple. He thought he had posted a poll about leaving me. He did not realize he had posted a poll about whether I still belonged in his life, and 90% of his audience had already decided I didn't. At 4:12 p.m., the first moving truck pulled up. I opened the garage and let the crew in. 3 men, efficient and professional, the kind of people who treat everything like a checklist and never ask personal questions. I showed them exactly what was being moved, everything that was mine. They didn't comment. They just wrapped, lifted, loaded. The couch went first. The living room changed shape immediately, like the house had lost its spine. Then the dining table, then the washer and dryer, disconnected and rolled out carefully. The bed frame was taken apart with practiced speed. The echo started to appear in the rooms as the big pieces disappeared. It wasn't dramatic in the way people expect breakups to be. It was logistical, and that made it feel even more final. I left behind what Ryan had bought. His vanity-style mirror for content shoots, the decorative shelves, the artwork with the inspirational quotes he loved posting. I left the mattress too. I bought the frame, not the mattress. That felt fair. I wasn't trying to punish him. I was separating reality from performance. While the movers worked, Ryan texted again. "You are being dramatic." I didn't respond. A few minutes later, he sent another message. "Babe, it is literally content." I didn't respond to that either. At 5:31 p.m., he called. I answered calmly. He started laughing the second I picked up. "You are not actually mad about that poll, are you?" His voice had that playful edge he used when he wanted to turn something serious into a joke and make me feel like I was the unreasonable one for taking it seriously. I looked out at the driveway where the movers were strapping down the last pieces inside the truck. I told him I voted yes. There was a pause so sharp it felt like the air shifted. "What does that even mean?" he asked. "It means I agree with your audience." His tone changed immediately, playful to sharp. "Amelia, stop. It was a joke. People expect this from me. It is engagement." I looked at the nearly empty living room as the last of my furniture disappeared. I told him that if public humiliation was part of his brand, I didn't fit the aesthetic anymore. He hung up on me. At 6:08 p.m., the movers closed the truck doors. I walked through the house one last time, checking closets, drawers, the spare room, making sure I had what mattered, and leaving what didn't. Then I locked the front door, placed my key on the kitchen counter, and drove to my sister's house. At 6:42 p.m., Ryan pulled into an empty driveway. He started calling at 6:45. The first call I let ring out. The second one I answered. For a moment, all I heard was his breathing, fast and uneven. Then footsteps. The echo in his voice told me he was standing in the living room. "Where is everything?" he demanded. I kept my voice even. "The things I bought are no longer there." "You cannot just empty the house, Amelia." I corrected him. I did not empty the house. I removed my property. He started talking over me, voice climbing. "This is insane. It was a joke. Everyone does polls like that. You are embarrassing me." That word stood out. Embarrassing. I asked him a simple question. What was the outcome you were hoping for? Best case scenario. 90% vote yes. Then what? He hesitated. Silence. Then he snapped back into defense. "It was engagement. People like drama. It boosts reach. You know how this works." I asked him if he would have posted a poll, asking if he should leave me for someone else if he didn't already enjoy the idea. He said I was twisting it. He said I was insecure. In the background, I could hear him moving through the house, opening doors, then closing them again, hearing the hollow sound of empty rooms. "Where are you even sleeping tonight?" he demanded. "Not there," I said. "You asked your audience if you should leave me," I answered. He tried to laugh again, but it came out strained. You are overreacting. This is what people do online. You are acting like a grandma. You are not an influencer, I said. You are my boyfriend. That sounded heavier than I expected, even to me, because it reminded me that this wasn't an abstract debate about content. This was our life. He went quiet for a few seconds, then his voice softened in a way that sounded like panic trying to disguise itself as reason. Come home, we can talk about this like adults. Adults don't crowdsource whether they should replace their partner, I said. His breathing changed again. I could hear the panic settling in. Then his tone flipped, defensive to pleading in seconds. Please don't do this. I'll delete it. I'll post an apology. I'll tell everyone it was stupid. I told him it was already stupid. Deleting it wouldn't change that he wrote it. That was when he started crying. Real crying, not the angry performative kind. The kind that happens when consequences become physical. It was just a joke, he said. I sat in my sister's guest room with my suitcase at the foot of the bed and listened to him cry into an empty house he had helped buy with me. 90% of that people you care about told you to leave me, I said quietly, and you gave them the option. I paused, then added the part he couldn't hear without feeling it. I agreed with them. He inhaled sharply like the words hit a nerve. Then he said it, the line that made everything clear. Amelia, come home. The house is empty. I answered calmly. That was the point. I didn't go back that night. I stayed at my sister's place and woke up early the next morning the same way I always do. Routine is grounding. I made coffee, answered a few work emails, and sat at the kitchen table looking out at the quiet street while the sun came up. When something dramatic happens, people expect the next step to be emotional. I've never worked that way. I make practical decisions first. At 9 a.m., I called the family law attorney recommended by a colleague. I explained the basics. 6 years together, no children, joint mortgage, shared savings. I told her I had already separated physically and removed the property I purchased before and during the relationship. She asked if there had been infidelity. I said, not that I could prove, but there was public humiliation and documented evidence of intent to undermine the relationship. She didn't react emotionally. She just explained the process. In our state, separation and asset division are straightforward when both people have documented contributions. The house would either be refinanced by one person buying the other out or sold, and the proceeds split. I told her immediately that I wanted the house sold, not out of revenge, out of practicality. I had no interest in negotiating who slept in which bedroom or whose car stayed in the driveway. Clean is better. By 11:30 a.m., she had drafted the first set of documents and sent them to me electronically. I read every page before signing. At noon, I transferred the remaining agreed portion of funds into a temporary escrow account as advised. Everything documented, everything traceable. Ryan texted me repeatedly while I was reviewing paperwork. Please come home. We can fix this. I deleted the poll. I posted that it was satire. I didn't respond. At 2:15 p.m., he showed up at my sister's house. I forgot we still shared location services on our phones. When I heard the knock, I already knew it was him. He looked smaller standing there than he had the night before. No makeup lights, no camera angles, no curated captions, just tired eyes and a hoodie. You cannot end everything over an Instagram poll, he said the moment the door opened. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so my sister wouldn't hear the conversation. I can end a relationship for any reason I decide, I said. He shook his head like he couldn't process what he was hearing. This is insane. You are blowing up our entire life over engagement bait. I told him calmly that he blew it up the moment he asked strangers to vote on whether I should be replaced. His voice cracked. I didn't mean it. That's the problem, I said. You didn't mean it. Then I told him the house would be listed for sale as part of the separation. The change in his expression was immediate. The panic faded and something more calculating appeared behind his eyes. You cannot force me to sell, he said quickly. My name is on the mortgage too. I nodded. Correct, which is why it will go through the court. Either you refinance and buy me out, or we sell and split. He knew refinancing on his income alone would be difficult. I had always handled most of the mortgage payments because I earned more and preferred financial control. That arrangement had never bothered him before. Now it suddenly mattered. You're punishing me, he said. No, I replied. I'm disengaging from someone who publicly tested whether I was replaceable. He sat down on the curb in front of my sister's house like his legs gave out. Cars passed slowly down the street. A neighbor across the road pretended not to watch. You're really throwing this away, he said quietly. I corrected him again. No, I'm refusing to compete in a popularity contest for my own relationship. He asked if I was seeing someone else. if there was another man, if I had been waiting for an excuse. There wasn't. The truth was simpler. I had been tolerating smaller versions of this behavior for a long time. The poll was just the first time it became measurable. 90%. That number made everything clear. Later that evening, he sent me screenshots of the apology he posted online. It said he loved his girlfriend and that people misunderstood his humor. He wrote that the internet takes things too seriously. What he didn't write was that he was wrong. The next morning, my attorney emailed confirming the separation petition had been filed. I forwarded Ryan the official notice. His reply came 10 minutes later. I didn't think you would actually do it. That was the difference between us. He treated the relationship like content. I treated it like a commitment. 2 weeks later, the house went on the market. There was no dramatic argument over staging or pricing. Our attorneys handled the logistics, and we agreed on an agent based on comparable listings in the neighborhood. The market was still decent. It would sell. Ryan stayed in the house during that time. I didn't go back. The first open house was on a Sunday. I drove past once out of curiosity. Not to spy, just to confirm it was real. There were balloons tied to the mailbox and a sign in the yard that said, "For sale." That sign hit harder than the legal paperwork had, because it meant the life we built together had officially been reduced to square footage and asking price. That evening, Ryan called. 3 offers, he said. His voice sounded flat and tired. I said that was good. He exhaled sharply. Do you even care? I thought about it. I cared about closing cleanly. I didn't care about preserving something that had already been publicly questioned. We accepted an offer above, asking the next day. The buyers were a young couple relocating from California, the kind of buyers who walk through a house and see possibility instead of history. For them, it was just a property with good light and a short commute. For me, it was 6 years of routines, arguments, dinners, quiet Sundays, and the slow erosion of something that had once felt solid. During the weeks before closing, the outside world started catching up to what had happened. Ryan's apology post didn't erase the original poll. Someone had already screen recorded it before he deleted it. It circulated quietly through group chats and private messages. I didn't go looking for it, but it reached me anyway. A couple of his brand clients dropped him. Apparently, they weren't excited about being associated with someone who publicly crowdsourced whether to leave his partner. One of his coworkers messaged me privately, saying they thought the poll was messed up. I didn't engage in gossip. My responses stayed short. We are separating. I wish him well. Ryan texted me late one night around midnight. I lost 2 clients today. I stared at the message for a while before answering. Responding with sympathy felt dishonest, but ignoring it felt unnecessarily cruel. Actions have consequences, I wrote. He replied immediately. You're cold. Maybe I was. But I also knew this situation wasn't about one poll. The poll was just the moment the pattern became visible. For months, Ryan had been building an online persona that depended on friction, teasing, pushing boundaries. I had quietly become the safe villain in that narrative. Without me there, without the tension to play against, the content dried up. The closing date was set for 30 days out. We agreed to meet at the house once before then to divide smaller items and sign the remaining disclosures. Walking back into the house felt strange. The rooms were half empty, echoing. The walls looked different without the furniture absorbing the sound. Ryan stood in the kitchen with his arms crossed when I walked in. So this is really happening, he said. I nodded. He studied my face carefully like he was searching for something. Anger, regret, hesitation. If I had never posted that poll, would you still be here, he asked. I answered honestly. Probably not for much longer. That seemed to hurt him more than anything else I had said. Closing day felt administrative. We met at the title company office at 10 in the morning. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, a small table with bottled water, stacks of documents waiting to be signed, the kind of room designed to reduce major life decisions into paperwork. Ryan looked exhausted. We signed the sale documents first. The proceeds from the house were wired directly into separate accounts according to the settlement agreement. After the mortgage payoff and fees were deducted, the split was clean. No arguing. No delays. Then we signed the separation settlement documents. No spousal support. No shared assets beyond what we had already divided. My attorney had done her job well. At one point, Ryan's hand hovered over the signature line longer than necessary. This is crazy, he muttered under his breath. I didn't respond. Once everything was signed, the notary gathered the documents and said congratulations in the automatic tone people use when they don't actually know what the event represents. Outside the building, Ryan stopped walking. So this is it, he said again. Yes. He looked at me carefully, almost like he was trying to memorize something. Amelia, I never thought you would actually leave. That was the miscalculation. He let out a small laugh that sounded more like disbelief than humor. Over an Instagram poll. I corrected him one last time. Over what the poll represented. He shook his head slowly. People do stupid things online all the time. I nodded. And they live with the results offline. Traffic moved behind us on the street. Somewhere down the block, a delivery truck was backing into an alley with that high-pitched warning beep. Ryan asked quietly, "Is there really no way back from this?" I thought about it for a moment. Not because I hated him. Not because I wanted revenge. But because once someone publicly measures your replaceability and invites strangers to validate it, the foundation changes permanently. You cannot unknow that. He nodded slowly like he understood. Then he walked toward his car. I walked toward mine. That was the last conversation we ever had face to face. Life didn't implode after that. It just became quieter. I moved into a smaller townhouse about 15 minutes from my office. 2 bedrooms, minimal furniture, everything intentional. When you remove half your life in a matter of weeks, you become very aware of what you actually need and what was only there out of habit. Work stayed steady. I kept the same routine I'd had for years. Gym before sunrise, coffee, meetings, spreadsheets, quiet dinners at home. There was no dramatic rebound phase, no sudden reinvention, no impulse to prove anything to anyone. Ryan tried reaching out a few times during the first couple of months after the separation finalized. At first, the messages were logistical. A piece of mail that still had my name on it. A subscription that had auto-renewed. Small, neutral reasons to reopen communication. I responded briefly and factually. "Please forward the mail. Cancel the subscription. I hope you're well." Then the tone shifted. One night, he sent a message that read, "I miss our old routine." Another time he wrote, "I didn't realize how much stability you brought into my life." The messages weren't angry anymore. They were reflective, almost careful, like someone testing the edge of a boundary to see if it was still there. Through mutual friends, I heard his online presence had changed too. Less sarcasm, fewer provocative jokes, more posts about growth and accountability. Engagement dipped for a while, then slowly stabilized again, but the tone was different. About 3 months after everything ended, he sent a longer message. "I'm in therapy now. I'm trying to understand why I needed attention like that. I'm sorry for humiliating you. It was cruel." That was the first time he used that word. Cruel. I read the message twice before replying. "I believe you." That was all I wrote. No reopening the door, no revisiting the relationship, just acknowledgement. Sometimes people only understand the weight of their actions once the audience disappears. The house was gone. The relationship was legally over. The online drama had faded into whatever algorithmic void content eventually falls into. What remained was clarity. The poll had been a symptom, not the cause. Ryan needed validation. I needed respect. Those two things were never going to coexist peacefully the way our relationship had been structured. About 4 months after the separation finalized, I noticed something small. Even though the legal process was finished and the house was sold, there was still a thin thread connecting us. Occasional reactions to old photos, a quiet like on something I posted about work, a brief message every few weeks. Nothing dramatic, but not nothing. One evening after that gym, I was sitting at my kitchen counter scrolling through my phone when his name appeared again. "I saw an old photo of us today. Hope you're doing okay." The message wasn't manipulative. It wasn't angry. It was familiar. And that was exactly the problem. Familiarity can blur boundaries if you allow it to. I didn't feel anger when I saw his name. I didn't feel longing either. What I felt was neutrality. The kind that only appears once something has completely settled. I thought about the poll. The 90%. The empty house, the sale sign in the yard. None of it felt sharp anymore. But I also understood something important. Closure isn't something you negotiate repeatedly. It's something you enforce. So instead of replying, instead of reopening a conversation that would slowly grow into something undefined again, I opened his contact information. I blocked his number. Then I removed the remaining connection on social media too. No announcement. No explanation. No final message. Just a clean boundary. Some people would call that cold. I call it consistent. The relationship ended when he invited strangers to vote on my value. The paperwork ended it legally. Blocking him ended it psychologically. I set my phone down and finished my dinner. The townhouse I live in now is quiet in a different way than the old house ever was. Not empty. Not echoing. Just mine. And if there's one thing that entire situation clarified for me, it's this. Respect is not something you crowdsource. It's something you either have or you walk away.